this is McCarthy, CEO of Echelon Performance. Welcome back for our next interview with Carrie Green and Allyson Reed, the leadership team from Exemplar Leadership. And the most exciting point, if I haven't driven it home already, is that we are working much more closely with Carrie and Allie and expanding our offerings and vice versa to help support clients in the life sciences industry with their needs across the leadership development spectrum. And also, if you watched the last interview with Claire and Carrie and Allyson, you know they're more than just a leadership development agency. They are moms and they work hard, and I think one of the reasons that we are so excited about this is that you're both at once very deep, very thoughtful people, but you also know how to have a nice laugh here and there. So that is but I'm going to poke around a little bit, because the first time we sat down and we talked a little bit about how you met and that you're best friends, and that's amazing that you can still work together with that dynamic. I mean, it's rare that you get to work with your best friend every day. And then you talked again with Claire about leadership development and really how it's very similar to parenthood, to motherhood. And we're also, the four of us are in the same boat in terms of, we are a small agency, you are a small agency. And I'm going to kick this off by saying, like, people who, my brother, parents, would always say, like, do you have a busy season with your business? And I would always answer with the same answer, which was hopefully season. But it is busy season now, right? People are planning for the next year. And one of the things that I find really incredible about your approach is you do a lot of mostly customized leadership development. And in order to do that, and based on my experience and Claire's experience, you really need to take your time, because if it doesn't feel like a solution that was for this company, it can just feel off, right? There's a lot of stuff that's off the shelf, sit lead, and all those things are good programs, but everybody's been through them. So I'm going to just ask you both, right? When you sit down and you're meeting a new client, somebody you're going to work with for the first time, walk us through your sort of mental process and how you bring that client along in terms of getting them the right solution.
Should I start, Carrie?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Sure. So as you mentioned, Ed, we are strong believers in customization, and we always start with an outline for all our calls. So we're prepared and we're organized. And then we do recommend usually research interviews to uncover the needs, unless the company has already conducted or already knows their needs. A lot of times they'll say, oh, we need to revamp our first line leadership program. And we said, well, let us evaluate first, because there might be some aspects of the current curriculum that we can keep and we could just add to it. And so that's where, people do really appreciate it, because we're not looking to just sell them something off the shelf, number one. We're really catering to their needs. We make sure that we incorporate their corporate culture. We use their verbiage. So we really wanted to make sure that whatever we create really resonates with our clients. And they do really appreciate it. And one of the things you had mentioned, Carrie and I are best friends. It's the two of us. People get us from start to finish, and they really like that, because they know that they can trust us, they can rely on us, there's consistency. And I think for this time of year especially, Ed, this is when people are in the planning process. So we love to get in with clients now to maybe do the research interviews, so they want to start the year off with a bang, and we can then start the project knowing what the needs are and start January 1. So this is really the perfect time to do that.
Before I have Carrie answer that question, you said on our first discussion, you said you're the more process-oriented person. Carrie is more of the right brain person, right?
Yes.
Sort of the creative.
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel you have different, so when you sit down and you're going to learn about a client, do you feel you ask different kinds of questions?
That's funny that you mentioned that, because there's so many times that we'll be on a call and I'm about to ask a question and Carrie asks it. So even though we think differently, we really do have a lot of the same questions. I think where we're different when we start to approach the project is I'm more I'll say, okay, let's get started and let's do this, and I come up with the timelines, and Carrie's more like, I got to start building. I need to have the vision. And so like, that's where we, I guess differ a little bit, but it works well for us. But in terms of the questions, it is amazing. I'll say to her, oh my gosh, I was just going to ask that question to the client. And she's like, we really do think so. We think alike. That's for sure. As Carrie had mentioned in another interview, we can finish each other's sentences. So it definitely helps us in the professional world and what we do.
Yeah.
And I think we both align on really wanting to make a difference for the participants. Not just like, we're both really passionate about this shouldn't just be a one and done. It shouldn't just be a box checking. And I think that today, organizations, their training departments are smaller than ever. So they have so much on their plate. Oftentimes people are rotating through there. And so when they come to us for leadership curriculum, or they come to us because they need to revamp a training program for a first-line leader, they don't have a lot of time. And so sometimes they're like, well, what have you got? Let's just plug that in. It's the end of the year. I have this much budget left. But what we like to do is really have a good understanding. And we have found really efficient ways of making that happen, where we can understand, okay, where are you at? And how do we meet you there so that the participants will benefit from this? And we've been participants in programs before as first-line leaders, especially our emerging leaders. And there have been some great programs, but I remember racking my brain of, how is this going to apply to my everyday job? How am I going to apply this so I am better at my role? And from that standpoint, I think that it gets really, we take it to the next level from that standpoint of really trying to understand and customize to meet companies there.
I think also just something just to question on that. You said, Carrie, wanting to be able to make a difference, right? And make something that people can digest. You didn't say digest, but I'll just.
Yeah.
It's not even about wanting it.
Or apply. Yeah.
You can, right? You actually, it's not, you want to do it, but also more importantly, you know that you can. You have, between the two of you, the skill set or the ability to be able to actually do that. You don't just want to do it, you actually can do it. And I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, and we've seen and we've witnessed firsthand the benefit of those types of programs and how they not just transform an organization, but more importantly, individuals within the organization telling us that things are so much better in my role now because I have the tools.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Claire this. Claire, do you and I ask different questions on a first conversation?
We do, but oftentimes it's really funny, the parallels between Allyson and Carrie. You and I are so similar. Oftentimes you do ask a question that I was going to ask, but we do approach. So oftentimes I'll get the answer. Sometimes you don't. And sometimes I do get a word in edgeways to ask a question. But
Claire, have you ever seen like you see these videos of people trying to hold down a hot air balloon, and it takes like 6 people to hang on, and Claire is one of those people, like during a conversation, because I'm just ready to take off and go. And Claire's like, okay, let's start, right?
Yeah. Allyson, I'm feeling judged.
I'm triggered.
I do. We do. But to answer your question, we ask very different questions, but oftentimes you will ask something that I would want to know the answer to. Yeah. And then I'll take the Allyson approach of, very strategically laying out how to approach a project and how to sort of execute it from beginning to end. And Ed's up there with 1,000 ideas, swirling around that somehow we have to figure out how to put into practical use, because they're really good ideas.
Right.
How do we harness them now?
Yeah,
I know. And I like coming up with the ideas, but I don't want to be bogged down with how we get from point A to point B. And
'Cause
Allyson,
you're already at point H at that point.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm the engineer on the train who has just like a train full of train tracks and puts the tracks down and then. So I'm building the train tracks at the same time.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I'd say you're more like the musical conductor. Like, okay, let's bring in the violins, let's bring in the trombones, let's bring in this, let's bring in
Exactly.
Allyson, do not do any analogies to how you see me.
But I'm not going to give you an analogy. I'm going to actually ask you. So you said before something about, and I don't know if it was this interview or one of the other ones, but I'm going to actually give you a scenario. So we'll do a little like of a, what would you do? How would Exemplar approach the situation? So let's say you got a call from somebody that you know. You both have huge network of people. You've been in the industry for a while. You have great reputation. So you get a call from somebody you know. Maybe they don't have a ton of budget, but they want to challenge their managers. They've done sit lead. They've checked a lot of the boxes. They just need something with a little bit more local feel to it. And they have to sell it to their boss. So tell me a little bit about the Exemplar approach. And Claire, I want you to chime in too, because I think you have a lot of experience just with our organization. What are some of the questions you would ask? How would you start to frame out what that solution would look like? I'm going to start with Carrie.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we ask, it would start very big picture of what would great look like to you. If, you know, where would the ideal scenario in a dream world be from a, you know, outcomes perspective here? So we'd like to start very big picture with the outcome and then kind of walk back from there. Okay, well, where are the gaps? Why don't you have that now? Like we'll try to understand. And then, you know, sometimes organizations are really good about knowing what the gaps are. I mean, they've done 360. Maybe they've put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound before. And now they realize, okay, you know what? We did that because we were out of time and budget. And that really didn't do anything to address the issue. Maybe the issue is, you know, lack of accountability in their leadership team. They're not holding people accountable. We worked with an organization once that their culture was fabulous. They were super employee centric, but they kind of swung so hard on the kindness and empathy piece that they weren't embracing accountability and realizing that accountability is kindness because you're helping take people to the next level. And so we had to go in there and kind of uncover that. Right. And once we uncovered that, then we could fill that gap. So I think the biggest thing is kind of understanding what's the desired outcome and then, you know, drilling down and asking questions around that outcome, around what's going on now, where are we at now, and how can we fill those gaps?
Yeah. Allyson?
And if I could just add to that, one of the questions you asked, Ed, is if they then need to present that to their bosses. So we usually will create a slide deck with our recommendations so they could then present that. Or we'll even say we'll get on a call with them, but if not, we'll give it to them so they can then present it with some recommendations from Exemplar.
Yeah.
I mean, fantastic. If I could add something, Ed, I think when you talk about the decision makers, they really want to know that this is going to be impactful and impact the business, the bottom line. The higher up, as you know, in the organization, the more it is about, you know, delivering for stakeholders. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're so excited about the partnership with Echelon, because time and time again, when we've presented, organizations have wanted to know about metrics. How are the, you know, this program sounds great. How are we going to measure this? How do we know that the program we have in place, especially in regards to coaching, right? It's the most important skill a leader, a first line leader is going to do. That's the essence of their job. From that standpoint, how do we know that what we're doing is affecting their coaching and improving it. And that's what we're so excited about to partner with you two on. Because when we've gotten to that next level, we have some solutions for different programs that we can show them this has been impactful. But partnering with you is going to take that to a whole new level, because around coaching, you know, they can implement and partner with Echelon and really be able to see those results.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And we're, you know, obviously we're excited as well, but yeah, to your point, it's one thing to run a really good, and like, you know, that was a great program, but sometimes as a training leader, a leadership development leader, you need to be able to show, you need to be able to prove with data that it was a great program. And that's where, to your point, that's where we come in. I do want to ask Claire, I'm going to ask Claire to tell you a story, but thank you for saying that about us. And I think one of the things that we're excited about with you is you communicate so clearly. And I think you really understand the decision-making mindset, because Claire will know what story I'm going to ask her to tell by this setup. Claire has a big bugaboo about poorly designed slide decks. When we go through the business world,
1,000 slides.
If we could get work done with 2 or 3 slides with every conversation, that would be Claire's ideal world. And we got off our first conversation when we first met. And what did you say, Claire?
So that was the best slide deck that is one of the best, most concise slide decks I've ever seen. About your slide deck, about the Exemplar slide deck. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent communicators. You made it easy for us to make a decision. And I thought that was really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are thrilled. So again, Carrie Green, Allyson Reed, Vice President East, Vice President West of Exemplar Leadership. I failed twice to give out the website. It's exemplarleadership.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Or it's okay. It's leadership with an HIP, not just
exemplarleadership.com.
Awesome. All right. It was so good to do this with both of you. We look forward to doing a lot of work together, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it as well.